2011. That's the upper stage of the rocket. It intentionally off-points us away from Mars by 25,000 kilometers because it also has all the energy it needs to get to Mars. And after it spins us up to 2 RPM, 2 revolutions per minute, and separates the spacecraft, which the rover is inside this entry capsule, then it does a divert maneuver and flies back and burns up in the atmosphere. But just in case that fails, we don't want it chasing us all the way to the ground on Mars. So it intentionally off-points us. So as we're flying to Mars, we do a series of small changes in velocity, small burns with our thrusters to get rid of that intentional insertion error and any other errors that build up. So that we end up, after about 8.5 months, ending up at the right spot in the universe for Mars to come up behind us and have the spacecraft fall into the gravity well. So 8.5 months later, we throw away the cruise stage, which is that top part that has solar panels that gave us the thrusters and everything we needed to steer our way to Mars. We start to enter the atmosphere. We're doing about 13,200 miles an hour. And we throw out some tungsten masses. And those tungsten masses then change our center of pressure with respect to the center of gravity so that we can steer our way through the atmosphere like the space shuttle used to. So this is the thrusters as the rover is steering itself. So the computer, the brains are inside the rover inside here. So this is the hypersonic phase. We're slowing ourselves down to about Mach 2, Mach 1.9, 2 times the speed of sound, about 900 miles an hour on Mars. And once the hypersonic phase is over, you'll see us shoot more tungsten masses out. Once we get up through that phase, we'll throw out more mass. That brings the center of gravity back down the center. Yeah, you can see it. So that way we can pop this 21-meter disc gap band parachute, supersonic parachute, that then pop the heat shield so our radar can now see the ground. This will slow us down to about 250 miles an hour. On Earth, you can take a parachute all the way to the ground without breaking your legs. On Mars, if you did that, you'd be hitting the ground at about 250 miles an hour, like a Formula One race car. Wow. So you have to do something else. So we pop out of the back shell in this powered descent vehicle configuration, where the rover is controlling this jetpack, essentially, over the top. And it lowers itself to about 50 feet above the ground, and then it starts, so it's showing an image of the radar, and there's a camera that's down looking, because there's no GPS on Mars, so the only way we know where we ended up is by comparing images that the rover takes with images that we've taken from orbit. And so this is using our descent imager. And as we got closer, we had scientists that were responsible for really understanding each square of the landing area, so that when we landed, they go, I know exactly where the rover is. I recognize that terrain. I've been living it for 2 years.
Wow.
So the rover lowers itself on these nylon bridles slowly, and it continues to control these thrusters as it's lowering itself to the ground. So there's 3 nylon ropes and then this little electrical umbilical that's controlling all the sensors and actuators that are up. Then once the rover touches down, it uses pyrotechnic cutters and cuts all those bridles. And then there's a primitive controller in the descent stage that flies for 4 seconds and shuts off. And then it's done its job. And the rover is on the surface, ready to go. All right, so